Okay, welcome. Oh, that was so good. That never happens. This is a Ruli crowd, which is good for most Inspire Speaker Series, but not for this one, because we're doing stories. So you guys are going to have to warm it up for our storytellers. There you go, because they're bearing their souls on stage tonight. So welcome to Green Building Alliance's Inspire Speaker Series. This is our sixth season of Inspire Speaker Series. This is our third storytelling session. It is a favorite among people who follow the Inspire Speaker Series, and I know some of you are repeat attendees. We don't have any repeat storytellers, though, so it's something new. So I'm Aurora Sherrard. I'm Executive Director of Green Building Alliance. Thank you. We're a membership and sponsorship organization. We have a new strategic plan. So if you're interested in the many things that we do as an organization, we're celebrating 25 years this year, organizationally, green buildings and communities, sustainable for everybody. And so it's what we do. Inspire Speaker Series is a way that we reach out and share a stage with a lot of different people, some of whom you will meet today. I'd like to thank FedEx Ground and Fourth Economy for sponsoring the Inspire Speaker Series. It takes support of a whole bunch of people to bring everybody to the stage, so let's give them a round of applause. And before we get to what we're doing tonight, I'd like to give you a little preview of where we're going in the future. So save the date, or you can register now online, March 8th. Our next Inspire Speaker Series is all about biophilia. So this is about nature in the built environment and designing places that actually resonate and reflect about our natural world in our built world. We have Amanda Sturgeon, who's the CEO from the International Living Future Institute, as our national speaker, and Patty Cully from BCJ Architects as our local speaker, just really talking about how to bring nature into our built world. It should be a really amazing, inspiring time to learn about beauty in our physical places. And then for those of you who are really into traditional Green Building Alliance work, we have a Biophilic Design Summit the day after at Phipps Conservatory, really talking in detail about how to make this happen in your classrooms, in your buildings, in your communities. We also, on May 10th, are really excited to announce that we're bringing Candy Chang as our national speaker. I got a little applause from Terry Baltimore there. So if you don't know who Candy Chang is, Google her, find her TED Talk, all these amazing things. She's a great, engaging, place-based artist, known internationally for her work with Before I Die, and a couple other things, just really helping people re-envision the places where they are and interact in really dreaming about what those places can be. So she's really great. We have not paired her with a local speaker yet. So if you're thinking of somebody who you know in Pittsburgh or Western Pennsylvania who'd be a good pairing, let us know. Well, our other Inspire Speaker Series throughout 2018, they're all scheduled, thanks to Jenna Kramer, our Vice President of Transformation and Community. Yeah. You can save the date for September 11th. We'll be collaborating with the International Living Future Institute, whoever they bring as their opening keynote in September. And then in November, we're going to bring Walter Hood and Stacy Levy to talk about landscape architecture and community art and how that really makes amazing places. So save the date for all of those and come back here to learn more. Also, for Inspire Speakers, I would be remiss if I didn't thank our number of partners who help us deliver this, everybody from Chatham University to GBA's own Green and Healthy Schools Academy to the Hill House and Homewood Children's Village and Next Pittsburgh and all sorts of other partners who help us make this happen. So with that, we're going to ease into storytelling today with someone familiar. But before I jump to that, I'd like to sort of set the rules of engagement. Getting up and telling a story is hard, right? I can stand up here with slides and a clicker and a microphone all day and talk to you about things that I know, but delivering a 5-minute story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a plot, and something memorable without that slide deck and without that support and without the clicker, just me and you, that's hard. I'm not telling a story tonight. So that tells you how hard it is. So we have 7 amazing speakers, actually 8, because Terry's going to tell us the story, who have volunteered to bear a small part of their soul to you tonight. And so I ask that you listen openly and you give them encouragement, and that you laugh. And maybe you'll cry, and that you just sort of help this be a safe space for them, because they really are doing something very brave. And so what each speaker is going to do is they're going to come up, they're going to tell their story. We're going to have Yasmin as our violinist. So let's welcome Yasmin to the stage. Yeah. Yasmin Zaki is a 7th grader from the Environmental Charter School. For those of you who were here last year, you'll remember her. She's advanced to grade, as we all hope that our children do. And so what she'll do is at the 5-minute mark, if our speakers go over, she'll play a few notes like this. And and if they get to the 7-minute mark, she'll go a little more. And all of this with each speaker, depending on each speaker and how far they go, it will be leading up and creating an audible puzzle for the piece that you'll be playing at sort of the midterm of the speakers. So thank you, Yasmin. Yeah. We also tonight, sort of in the middle, have a number of students from the Environmental Charter School who will be telling a collective story. So, yeah. So fun surprises along the way. And so with that, I'm going to invite to the stage somebody who you see at every Inspire Speaker Series, who welcomes you to the Hill District and the Hill House, but is going to be brave herself today and start us off with a story. And so that would be Terry Baltimore, Director of Neighborhood Engagement at the Hill House Association. Terry.
Good evening. So here we go. This picture is a picture in the courtyard right outside those doors. And that really serious looking, kind of skinny chick in the middle, that's me. I took this picture in 1977 when I was 16 years old. And when I was 16, I thought, I'm sitting in this courtyard once, maybe twice, and I'll never do it again. Never say never. Because when I sat in that courtyard, I met the coolest person that I never met. Please. I met Selma Burke. Selma Burke is an incredible woman. She was a sculptor, and she knew when she was 4 years old what she was going to do. Because she would go to the riverbank outside her house, and she would squeeze the clay between her fingers. And she liked the way it felt. And she said once, in 1907, I discovered me. And that was her holding that piece of clay. She was an incredible woman because her grandmother encouraged her to be an artist. Her mom wanted her to do something practical, like be a nurse. So she went to nursing school. And in the 30s, she went to New York and became part of the Harlem Renaissance. She married Claude McKay, who was a poet, and we love Claude McKay in the Hill because he's the person that coined the phrase that the Hill District was the crossroads of the world. Their relationship was short-lived, but she found her voice as an artist. In the mid-30s, she left New York and embarked on an adventure in Europe. She went to Europe and she studied with Aristotle Malal and Henri Matisse. Ooh, as I knock over the, the podium. And then she came back and she started to do her work. One of the things that she did that was totally incredible is the image that she's standing in front of now. Does anybody recognize what she's standing in front of? Yep. Anything else about that image that looks vaguely familiar? Anybody got a dime? So in 1943, she got the commission to do an image of President Roosevelt for the Recorder of Deeds building in Washington, D.C. She was sick, she was in the hospital, and she literally had 45 minutes to sketch him in the White House. She went from the hospital to the A&P where she got butcher paper. She took that to the White House, and that's what she worked on. And this image of the dime is really important because for many years, she never got the credit for being the artist that did that work. So, how did I meet, I'm really nervous. How did I meet Miss Selma? I met her sitting in that courtyard looking up at this image on your left. It's a piece called The Family, and she dedicated this piece on July 20th, 1975, when Hill House opened its doors. It's really interesting to me because it's on this hideous piece of pink vinyl, and there's nothing that tells us why, but it just was. And for years, from the time I was 16 up until a few years ago, I would sit in that courtyard and look up at this piece. And the only thing I knew was that it was done by Selma Burke. This building was redone in 2008, and the guys who were working on the building took this piece off the wall and wheeled it into my office. Lucky me. So for 4 years, I got to live with this. And when it first came into my office, I started going through the archives at Hill House, and I realized we didn't know anything about it. So we never had it insured or appraised. So I called a local art dealer and said, we've got this piece, it's by Selma Burke. Could you come and look at it? How much is an appraisal? When we got done, this is what he said. Oh, I'll come do it myself for free. So he came, did the appraisal. They had to scrape me up off the floor in my office because it was worth $85,000 and we never knew that. Oh, 5 minutes goes quickly. So we've learned a lot about Miss Selma in the last few years. And this is what I want to share with you. There are 3 things that you can do to help us as we try to conserve this piece. 1, I need you all to say her name. Say Selma Burke. Selma Burke. Thank you. Because now for this group of folks, she is not an anonymous person. She is a real woman. Number 2, I want you to, next time you give somebody change and you have a dime, tell them that a Black woman did this. And the last thing that you could do, we're trying to conserve this piece, so look out for the web page information at Hill House, because we want to conserve it and reinstall it where it can be shared, not just by the people in the Hill District, but the people of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thanks to Terry for being brave, for being first. Let's give her another round of applause. Yeah. She said 5 minutes go fast. So just for our other storytellers to know. And with that, I'd like to introduce Michelle Fanzo, who would be our next storyteller. She's the executive director of the American Institute of Architects, Pittsburgh. I actually met Michelle for the first time through Mike Schiller, GBA's previous executive director. She's an amazingly well-traveled woman, trained as a journalist, is Pittsburgh famous for starting PUMP, Pittsburgh Urban Magnet Project, for those of you who don't know, has traveled all around the world, worked for the United Nations, is just, very well accomplished. Was actually part of Pittsburgh TEDx last year or the year before. So if you were there, maybe you saw Michelle, and with that, I'll welcome her to the stage to share her story.
So when I was a kid, I really wanted to be Lois Lane. So it's not surprising that I grew up and I became a journalist, and I went to work for the daily newspaper that was in my New England college town. And I loved the charm of Western Massachusetts, but after a couple years, I realized if I really wanted to write about what was happening in the world, I needed to go someplace that was different than what I already knew. And this is how I ended up in Pittsburgh in 1992, at a time when many people of my generation were still leaving this region. And as a reporter, I got to learn about how vibrant the Mon Valley used to be, and that the city of Pittsburgh really wanted new stadiums, and that there were some people down on the Allegheny building robots. And I fell in love with the town. I loved the quirkiness and the characters and the uniqueness that was Pittsburgh, so much so that I did start PUMP to keep and attract young people to the region. And soon after, I got a degree at Pitt in International Affairs because I wanted to continue on the path that I felt had been started here in Pittsburgh about learning about things I didn't already know about. So I got a job at the UN, and one of my early colleagues said to me, in your travels, you will encounter places that inexplicably get under your skin, and you will carry a piece of those places with you for the rest of your life. And here is a snapshot of 2 of those places. So I moved to Kenya in this photo as a communications specialist writing about the UN's development projects. And I was taken aback by the natural beauty, the wild natural beauty of this place. And one of the many things I learned while I was there is that in their natural habitat, which we don't get to see here, giraffes actually run, and they run elegantly. This next photo is a picture of Esther, who I met in a cornfield. I had become separated from my group and our interpreter, but Esther found me before I found them. And in her excitement, she started telling me her story about how she and other women were working in her village to produce non-pesticide produce, which you can see there, to be able to bring healthier food to their village. And I tried to stop her telling me this because I did not speak Swahili, and the words were just like rolling past me, right? And then all of a sudden, I realized I didn't need the interpreter, because this wasn't about the words. It was about the listening, about the witnessing, about recognizing in her pride in being able to do something good for the people that she cared about. So she taught me a lot that day. And just as an aside, the guys in this photo showed up halfway through our conversation and started to talk over her, and I think try to take some credit for the project. And she had this wonderful hand motion, like swatting away flies, right? And I didn't need any of the words, like it was completely clear. So Afghanistan is a tough place to love at this point in its history. But even there is plenty of charm if you look for it. This is the beautiful Bamyan Valley. I was on and off in Afghanistan for about 3.5 years, running a project to provide education, healthcare, and jobs to Afghan women and girls. And many of our staff were Afghan men who were working with us to make their communities better for their families and to try to help their girls get into school. And I struggled a bit with how to be a foreign female boss in this environment. And one day, I was walking down a rural dirt road with 3 of my male colleagues. And it's very, very dry. The air is very dry in Afghanistan, and my contact lens is dried out. And that, you know that awful feeling? And I squinted, and one of them just leapt from my eye and landed in the dust. And I got down on my hands and knees very quickly to find it, because it was going to be weeks before I could get home and get another one. And my male colleagues got very agitated, and they were like, "You cannot do this. This does not look good. Like, it's already complicated enough. You're female and foreign, and we're trying to figure this out, and now you're kind of scurrying around at our feet. We will find what you're missing." Now, these guys had never seen a contact lens, but they all got down on the ground and furiously looked for it. And male pride is a powerful thing. So they wouldn't stop until they found it. And I would say, no, it's fine. And they'd say, no, we will find it. And finally, one of my colleagues looked up at me, and he said, "Michelle, we will find this tiny, invisible thing from thousands of miles away that lived in your eye and is now in the dust of ancient Afghanistan." And then we all looked at each other and burst out laughing at the sheer monumental absurdity of the moment in this place, in this time, right? And ultimately, excuse me, what happened is we laughed. We laughed through our cultural differences, right? We laughed through our gender differences. We laughed across geography and religion and office hierarchies. And what we found was something far more valuable than a contact lens. It was a shared human spirit. So 3 years ago, I moved back to Pittsburgh, and I got a job at AIA Pittsburgh working with architects. And at our very first board meeting, I asked the architects, "Why do you do what you do?" Because I'm interested in the story. And one of them said to me, "Because I want to make my community better." And in that moment, I heard the echoes of the cornfield and the dirt road. And I knew once again I was in the right place. Thank you.
That was really great, Michelle. Thank you for reminding us of our theme tonight, which is inspirational stories about creating sustainable, vibrant, healthy, and just places. And so if you haven't filled out your card about a place that you love and why, we would like to know from you. What are the places that you love in Pittsburgh, in your neighborhood, at your house, around the world, and why? Write them down, pass them to the end of your row. Amazing GBA staff members will pick them up, and I'll read the ones that apply to our stories. And so this is very timely, and I think it's a connection to our next speaker, but a place I love is New Orleans. It's Mardi Gras season there. I am not there. I am here. But one of our staff members is there. And what New Orleans has, in combination with our next speaker, who's very covertly walking behind me on the stage, is a connection to music. It turns out that a lot of people know a lot of things about Tim Smith. He's the executive director over the Center of Life. And he has worked in Hazelwood for a very long time. He is an amazing storyteller that I've seen on different stages, talking about all sorts of things. But he's also an artist and a musician. He says he doesn't get to play a lot on stage anymore, and he's not playing tonight. But maybe those of you who are in the music world will give him an opportunity to do so in a less committal way, knowing that nonprofit executive directors have a lot of commitments. But with that, I welcome to the stage Tim Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. I just offered her some money not to gong me, but repeat after me. If you want to see something different happen, you got to be willing to do something different. And if you do something different, something different will happen. You know, it always amazes me, in the work that I get an opportunity to do, it always amazes me how many people have come into our communities. And when I say our communities, I'm talking about underserved communities, communities that have been underserved for generations. And when people come in and they seem to have the answer for what this community needs to look like or how it needs to be rebirthed or reproduced and all those kinds of things. And then when they pull me to the table, they want to convince me that what happened in the community next door or the other communities that they were in is not going to happen in our community. And it's almost like going to Giant Eagle. And you go to Giant Eagle and you're shopping and you're going to get a box of cereal. Let's just go to the cereal aisle, all right? You go to the cereal aisle and you see a box of Rice Krispies, right? And then next to it, you see a box of crispy rice, right? Or you'll see cornflakes and then you'll see corny flakes, all right? Now, if you buy both those boxes, and you open both those boxes, all you're going to see is the exact same thing in a different box, right? The exact same thing in a different box. So nobody really did anything different. They just changed the box. What I learned about the work that I get an opportunity to do is the first thing you have to do is become a student of the work. Once you become a student of the work, once you become a student of the people that you want to touch, once you get touched by the people that you want to touch, then you can start reaching out and you can start trying to do something. What I found when I went to Hazelwood and when I wanted to start Center of Life in 2001, what I found out was that I needed to register for the University of Hazelwood. And in the University of Hazelwood, every man, woman, boy, and girl was my professor. And through those relationships that were built at those dinner tables, at those funeral services, at those worship services in their churches, in their homes, on those basketball courts, in those stores, whatever stores were left at the time, that's where I learned what we needed to do through the organization of Center of Life. So everything, and I tell people this everywhere I go, every single thing that we've ever done through Center of Life, we got it through the community. It was the community that told us what to do. It was the community that fed our vision and fed our passion to try to do something good. So if you want to do something different, if you want something different to happen, you have to do something different. You have to do something different. But the first step is to register for class in the community that you want to help. I think I did it.
I think Tim was just afraid of the violin. She's scary. 7th grade, it's rough. I know you have grown children now, but, you could have handled that. Jenna wasn't ready either. So what is a place you love and why? Terry, did you write this one? The Hill District, rich in culture and history. What is a place you love and why? I love my 95 acres of mountainous woodland on a ridge in West Virginia. I traipse all over that woods. In the springs, I hunt for morels. In the summer, I stick to the old logging trails, not fond of snakes, to look for nesting warblers. In the fall, my walks often end with a bag of black walnuts. And in winter, it's fun to observe tracks in the snow. A walk in my woods always recharges me and soothes my soul. What is a place you love and why? The river trails around Pittsburgh. They offer freedom, health, inspiration, community, and a path. A path that can take you to any place in Pittsburgh. What is a place you love and why? My mind, because it is my own. Deep. Deep thoughts, man. Woo. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to introduce Rebecca Flora, who has had many deep thoughts about many places around the world, but specifically has been a longtime lover of sustainability in Pittsburgh. She was Green Building Alliance's first executive director. She worked for the Urban Redevelopment Authority. She worked for the Southside Local Development Corporation. She hired me over 10 years ago at GBA, and she now is the managing project director for Hazelwood Green. So her adjacency to Tim Smith is no accident. They share a future and an opportunity, and I welcome her to the stage to tell her story.
Six million acres, 30,000 miles of river, 10,000 lakes. That's the place I love. That's where my roots are. People wouldn't know it for the work I do here now. But this is the story I'm going to tell you. This place, 5 generations back, my great-great-grandmother and French voyageur great-grandfather, crossed the St. Lawrence and discovered this place that was called for bark eaters because no one lived there during the winter. It was quite rough. If you think Pittsburgh's rough now, you should be there in the winter, 40 below zero, and that's just on the thermometer. That's where I grew up. That's where I would wander into the forests fearlessly in my backyard. That is the place that I treasure, I love, and it's the place who made me who I am. It's the place where resiliency actually was a word that we called self-sufficient. It was a place where gardening and having placed stuff in the cellar was how we survived the winters while my dad was on unemployment. I was first generation college, and we didn't really think about the fact that we were poor at times because we had the land. Tim and I have talked about land, how land means something. We had land, and it was where we lived, and the land was very, very special. This place is really special to me, and I think it shaped me, it formed me, it gave me the strength, the courage, the things that I really didn't know at the time I would have to face later in life when I would stand up to powerful forces. It also taught me the importance of nature, and that nature is really part of us, and we have to be part of that. But sometimes the places we love, you have to let go of. And I had to finally let go of this place. Interestingly, those roots led one journalist to call me the Lorax at one point in time when we were doing some really interesting things at Green Building Alliance. And everything that I was doing in the beginning of Green Building Alliance, I would start my presentations in the toughest audiences you can imagine. Or I would end with that slide, my daughters. And I would say, do you care about your children or the children in your life? Then you need to hear what I have to say. And it was about reaching deep inside of people into their roots, into the things that they care about and the places they love, and saying, we have to find that in common. And we usually did. And so this notion of the Lorax and letting go and finding out what your roots are and finding out what you really love and finding that connection with others is a lot of what I think helped allow me to be successful in Pittsburgh. This country girl coming into the city. I'd walk in the woods without even thinking about it, but walking down the street in Pittsburgh when I first moved here, whoa, that was scary. Because it just was foreign to me, it was different. But I drew from that courage of my roots and figured out how to do that. And so this notion of, you know, really being rooted somewhere, really understanding who you are, what made you special, what your values were, carrying those forward, but then letting go and gaining perspective. Without perspective, you really, you know, then you're just this myopic. You can't really understand where other points of view are coming from. You can't understand when you walk into Gary Salson's office at PNC and say, okay, yeah, you've got security problems, great. I need to understand that. I need to understand how I can meet you halfway and bring that perspective. So this notion of finding how your values can translate to other people's values and how your roots translate to what someone else cares about, and then sticking with it. Tenacity, that's my last word. Because this notion that to be stubborn, that doesn't get you anywhere, right? You have to really understand what you're believing in. You have to also understand everyone else's beliefs and why they care, and you have to figure out how to connect those. And so for me, tenacity, and how through tenacity, and I was also called tenacious, and a lot of other things, as people were trying to sort of convince me that it was absolutely crazy that we should build the world's first green convention center and that we should do green building at all. Why bother? That was 15, however many years ago. It wasn't on the radar. But it took tenacity. Tenacity won't win unless you stick with your values, you understand your roots, you understand what you really care about, and you take the time to get perspective. Because without perspective and your ability to understand where others are coming from and what you have in common, then you can be tenacious. And then you can stick in and dig in and sort of say, we have to do this. We have to do this because we're building a bridge about what I care about and what you care about, so let's find some place in the middle and let's build something we can all care about. And that's what we did at the convention center, which is a whole other story. And green building is a whole other story. And so I am so proud of the story of green building and the fact that it actually started with someone who cared a whole lot. And unless we care a lot about these things, and unless we draw back upon our roots and what we care about in the future, and unless we do all of those things, there will be no future. So thank you all, and let's have lots more stories to tell.
Jenna's making me work for it. She doesn't even give me a chance to read these in advance. What is a place you love and why? The Frick Environmental Center, a great place to start a walk with our puppy, Sam. A place you love and why? The Fun Trail in Frick Park. We run it sometimes in Girls on the Run, and I love all of the sounds that I hear because they make me forget about my life and focus on just the things around me. What is a place you love and why? Frick Park. You might notice a theme. It has been a place of inspiration where my husband and I made many life-changing decisions. It's like a teaser. What is a place you love and why? Frick Environmental Center. Oh, I already read this one. Frick Environmental Center. And with that, I'm going to welcome to the stage students from the Environmental Charter School at Frick Park. So I have 6th through 8th graders here, right? Yeah? 7th through 8th graders. Do you guys want to tell your story first? Introduce yourself first? What? Introduce yourself first? Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elena Thompson.
Hi, I'm Calafiscus.
Hi, I'm Sean Johnson.
Hi, I'm Ezra Jones.
Hi, I'm Millie Fraser.
Hello, I'm Yasmin Zaki.
I'm Mia Wahila. We are 7th and 8th grade students from the Environmental Charter School, and we have some love letters we'd like to share about the places that matter to us. Dear Universe, we don't know much. We know there was the Big Bang, and then everything came into existence, but we have no idea what caused it. It's funny that the universe is all we know, all that exists, yet we barely know anything about it. We know the universe is constantly expanding. We don't know what it's expanding into. We don't know if there's anything beyond it, and we can't even begin to imagine. We don't know what came before our universe, and we can't just picture nothingness. What we do know, however, is that we all started in the same place. Everything was created from the same stuff, the same stardust. We all began together, and we still are the same. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we don't take the time to appreciate the beauty in everything, and that shouldn't be the case, because you've given us all of it, and we get wrapped up in the few things we do know, instead of trying to figure out more. Sincerely, life forms of the universe.
Dear Planet Earth, you're really something. You gave us everything we needed long ago, and now you continue to provide for us. And not only do we never say thank you, but we take our resources for granted. Your water, your land, your love, your care. But you are not perfect, and it's not your fault. Your humans, your people, they have done things you didn't think were possible. They have divided themselves and their surroundings. They have placed your world in a spot that is hard to get out of. And yet you are still spinning. You are alive and holding us all. You are giving us everything we need. You are nurturing us. You are beautiful. Thank you. Signed, your children.
Dear United States, tyranny and rebellion and war, foundations to our skyscrapers. What else could be expected? Do we expect or accept? Sheep dividing, shepherd dividing. It's dots and stripes and wrong and right and left and new and old and young, blue and black. Living off borrowed land, free, unless they check my pass. Was there ever a chance of the future of dreams, dreamers? A chance? It doesn't matter if there was a chance. We can't rely on a chance. We have us. We have a hope. We have dreams. We have a vision. 323 million hopes and dreams and visions. And we will build it, tearing apart the foundation, brick by brick. Love, citizens who care.
Dear Pittsburgh, we love, we care for, we appreciate Pittsburgh. We all love going home after a day of hard work, to our neighborhoods in every little corner of the city. And we become one when our team scores. The city shakes in celebration. But not everyone gets to join in. Between all this love, there are cracks that need to be mended. Some might say we aren't one, but two cities. We separate ourselves from one another, rich from poor, black from white, neighborhood from neighborhood. Driving through the streets, we think the homeless made themselves homeless. The way I see it is that they didn't have what we had. We had people who had taken care of us and loved us. People who had the resources to make us who we are now. We can do better. We are the city of champions. Let's become champions for our city. Let us spread awareness and share our resources so that everyone can love, can care for, can appreciate Pittsburgh. Sincerely, Stiller Nation.
Dear Brighton Heights, why must we scratch at the dirt like pigs, trying to find the truffles of life we so desperately need? Church basements don't give me the knowledge I require. Overpopulated classes don't give me the future I desire. I plead out to you, but you never seem to listen. The children are screaming. Do you not hear them? Aren't their screams loud enough? The waves of Dromara are sweeping them away, and only a few find the power to swim under. But these few go on to do amazing things. This is why I love you. You push me to be the best version of me. You push me to make you better for future generations. The children of the future will be lucky to have the Brighton Heights we built for them, and I am determined to make it that way. With love, the children of Brighton Heights.
Dear school, you are second home, a place for children to escape, a protective dome, an area that is supposed to be full of respect for who you are, where you are from, what you look like, and what you are lacking. No matter what the location, every school should provide the same opportunities for students, a place for dreams to succeed and not for hearts to be broken. It's time people have discovered that children should be a force protecting one another. Everything is connected in our society. Inequities create a gap between underprivileged and wealthy schools. Education shouldn't be a war, but a living system that needs to grow, thrive, breathe life into each of us. Yours cheerily, the youth.
Dear each of you, when I look at myself, I see a product of my world, my nation, my city, my neighborhood, my school, a child of God, my existence being an impossible exception. When I look out into the universe, I see the stars that hang above all 7 billion of us, a similar scene, a connecting background, a cold, distant comfort. I see everything in color, everything like art, the world brushstrokes from the hands of God. We are all the same stardust, a recycled image of our ancestors, an evolved version of an ancient race. Yet, every person in this world sees something different. Some of us see the world from the ground due to a short stature. Some see life as a fleeting moment because of a diagnosis. And some of us are chained down when we're destined to fly. No matter what, our unique perspectives make the earth and universe we share seem polar opposite. Us images of our shared outer space, reflections of the cosmos, and all of our infinite diversity, all seeing a unique world even though we all live in the same one. After all, isn't life what you make it? So, dear self, dear school, dear neighborhood, dear city, dear country, dear earth, and dear universe, I love you because what I have made of you and because what you have made of me. Signed, each of us.
That was amazing. That was really great. I know some adults who aren't comfortable on a stage in front of 200 people. Let's give them another hand. Yeah. Nice job, Yasmin. What is a place you love and why? Heinz History Center, depending on the exhibit. What is a place you love and why? Woods Run Library. I like so many things about that. That it's a library, that it's in Woods Run. I've never been to this branch. Now I have to go. Yeah. North Shore Bike Trail. Exercise, relax along a waterfront area, park bike, and great way to experience events in downtown areas without parking hassles. It's like a vacation brochure. Come to Pittsburgh. Bike and waterfront. I also love that these guys are getting beer while we're doing this. What's a place you love and why? I love Shenley Park. I went there for lunch. Oh, not for lunch. I went there for a lunchtime walk for several years. It was a really long walk. And really found respite and enjoyment. Old rocks and nature. You can be lost there in the middle of the city. I love Shenley Park too. It's my park. I live within walking distance. What is a place you love and why? The beach, the sound of the waves, and the smell of the salt water is relaxing, especially this time of year. We all wish we were on the beach this week. So sometimes when I think about storytelling, I think about sports, and I think about playing Wii. Who plays Wii still? Anyone? Yeah, see, I got some hands. You know when you do like Wii ski jumping, when you're like at the top and you're like, you know, your little guy's like this. You're on the Wii balance board, yeah, see? You're like ready to go. This is what the story's like. You're like preparing, and then you like start going, and then you get to the end and you sort of like have to balance in the air, and then you stick the landing. That's what our next guy is going to do for us. No pressure. So, Will Allen, some of you may know from his professional sports career, not as a ski jumper, sadly, before the Pittsburgh Steelers. I actually didn't know Will when he was a Steelers player. I'm not really a football fan. I don't know if we've ever discussed this, but I'm a basketball fan, as you'll learn later. But Will and I actually met over Twitter around the Inspire Speaker Series. He was following TBA on Twitter, Inspire Speaker Series, was retweeting us up a storm. Our multimedia director said, hey, you know, there's a celebrity following us? I was like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, this Will Allen guy. And so I tweeted to Will. This is the oddest, most 21st century way to meet people. I tweeted to Will and said, hey, do you want to be an Inspire Speaker Series storyteller? That was 2 years ago. He couldn't do it last year, but he graciously agreed to do it this year. And it turns out that we're not just Will's pity case. He actually really digs green buildings and energy efficiency and renewable energy. He owns his own energy company. He's investing in new startup technology. He's a really amazing guy, incredibly invested in Pittsburgh. And I'd like to welcome to the stage my friend, Will Allen.
I look mean up there. I'm not a mean person, maybe on the football field. Thank you for having me. That is how it started. That's how I became familiar with green building. My story starts in Dayton, Ohio. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. Yeah, it used to be like a bolstering, auto manufacturing town. My grandfather was a janitor for GM for 35 years, and he never told me what he did for a living. He just said, work hard and be great. You know, I grew up in this small, very low income, impoverished area, and my house was probably, you know, close to 1,000 square feet, and there's 5 people living in there, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and just a living room and like a small kitchen. And, you know, when you're young, you're just like, oh, we got a house overhead, a roof overhead, it's the greatest thing ever. And what I remember most about growing up was watching my dad, who also was somewhat of a janitor because he inspected sewer lines. Right, so he's looking at poop and, you know, making sure the water lines are manageable and not cracked, and, you know, inspecting for lead and any other type of poor infrastructure. And he did this for a long time, and but I remember him impacting the community. Right, it didn't matter what his stature was in life, or what his job and role was. He worked hard, and I remember vividly this image I have in my brain. It was this all-state basketball player. He was averaging like 50 points a night, like no lie. And, you know, I just kept seeing these colleges come to his house day after day after day after day. And it was about 7 people living in his house. So my dad would like take his arm around him and, you know, speak life into him. Just mentoring him and speaking life into him. And I was just a kid just watching, like, well, what is my dad doing? Like, he's, you know, got his arm around this guy. What is he doing? And that lasting image is something I always remember, right? Yeah, I play sports, and yes, I'm investing in companies, and I'm making this transition from football to business world and real life, but it's all for naught. It really is all for naught if I'm not using my platform and extending what I know and what I learned and doing what I saw my dad do, right? Putting his arm around another person, loving on them, teaching them, mentoring them, showing them the path of life. So I make it my personal mission in life, no matter it's through my foundation or through business, to always, always, always think about service. I was at an event this past weekend in Super Bowl, and it was CEOs and athletes, right? All these top CEOs. You name them, they were there, and all these athletes. And I heard the priest say something that really stuck with me: magnanimity steeped with humility. Magnanimity steeped with humility. And magnanimity is the pursuit of greatness, the pursuit of an honorable thing that you're going after, and you'll do it no matter what the difficulty. But that's very selfish, right? That's very self-centered. But humility is about service. It truly is about service. So I started a foundation because I was really upset. I was really upset that I didn't know about green buildings. I didn't know about energy. I didn't know about business. I didn't know about what college and life, real life, was about. I'm 21 years old, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have a lot of money in my pocket, and I do not know what to do with my life. Right? I'm just sitting here. My parents didn't teach me, mentors didn't, people did not teach me about life. And here I am like, well, what do I do? How do I function? And I said, I want to change that. Like, here I am, a football player, a person with influence, a person that can impact other people's life. How can I serve? And that's what humility is. Humility is saying I'm lowering myself, or I'm meeting people where they are because I care, right? And I want to serve. So I still have that lasting image. So that's what I decided to do. I just started a foundation to help people, help young high school students not deal with what I dealt with. Like, they should know. They should know how to balance their checkbooks. They should know about credit, taxes, loans, how to buy a house, right? They should know if I have $50,000 in the bank, what should I do? So that was my passion. So I just carried those passions over to business. So I meet people like Rebecca, I meet people like everybody in here, and I say, well, how can I connect you to people who were once me, right? How do I connect the CEOs and everyone who's involved in real life to real people, right? Because sometimes we get real stuck in our ways and we get siloed in our magnanimity. But now we have to learn humility and service. So that is my journey. This is where I am, and I'll always be here. This is my life. I'll always have service included in business, giving back, reaching out. It doesn't matter. So I thank you all, and I hope I inspire some of you. And if you have any questions, I'm always willing to answer them. Thank you.
So I inadvertently skipped over Yasmin, who is going to perform for us the collective puzzle that she's been creating up here. So Yasmin Zaki. So what was that we just listened to?
That was the second movement of one of Vivaldi's concertos.
Nice. How long have you been playing violin?
10 years.
And so that makes you like 20, right?
No.
7th grade. 13?
About, yeah.
About? Okay. Let's give Yasmin another hand. What is a place you love and why? Jack, stack, pool. I don't know what that means, but. What is a place you love and why? North Shore Fountain. My kids love it and get to enjoy the outdoors in the city. What is a place you love and why? This is actually, I didn't write this card, but this is my favorite place too. My backyard hammock. Yeah. Mound View Farm, West Virginia. I'm the 5th generation to live there. Awesome. What is a place you love and why? Sitting around the kitchen table with family playing games. So much love in the room. I don't think you've ever played games with my family. They're a little bit more competitive than that. A place you love and why? PPG Paints Arena, because the Pittsburgh Penguins. So with that, I'm going to introduce our next storyteller. Dr. Gretchen, let me get their middle name, Givens Jenneret, who is in the School of Education at Duquesne University. As she told me previously, she was a professional athlete in her former life. I'm still not sure exactly what that means. But she grew up in rural Virginia, and she went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And we're divided because I'm a Duke fan and she's a Tar Heels fan. But we could agree that Grant Hill was an amazing basketball player. So Gretchen was all about educating educators, creating the future, creating amazing places. And I welcome her to the stage today to tell her story.
I forgive you for being a Duke fan. As an associate dean, I found myself in an administrative position without a lot of direction and clarity about my role and responsibilities. As I worked each day, I kept thinking, I want to be a good leader. I want to be seen as a knower, because that's how I understood myself to be in my role as a professor. And so this new role, I found myself being really anxious about getting it right and doing it well. Before I knew it, I was working all the time, busy every day, running around in circles, moving really, really fast without really moving forward. In addition to being an administrator, I still had all of my other responsibilities: teaching, conducting research, trying to be of service in the greater Pittsburgh community. And oh, I'm also a wife and a mother of 2. Before long, I was unrecognizable to myself and even those who I love. One day, while driving down Route 28, I was on the phone talking to a friend, and I was sharing with her how exhausted I was. And as she listened to me share and talk about my sleepless nights, my weight gain, my short temper with my husband and children, she said to me very calmly and with lots of love, "Surrender." "Surrender?" I said. "What do you mean?" "Surrender. I mean just that." And I heard myself choke as the word swelled up in my throat, I don't know what that means. And I surely don't know how to do that. We continued our conversation until I got home, and I said goodbye. And as I walked into the house to start the second shift, you know, cooking, transporting kids, all of that primary caretaker work that's invisible to everybody except those of us who do it, I realized that the word surrender kept coming up in my head. And after I settled the kids and everybody was in their place, I decided that I would just sit down and pour myself a glass of wine. And as I sat there in silence, it occurred to me that I could not remember the last time I sat by myself in silence. No cell phone, no TV, no email, no alerts, nobody to attend to. And then the full weight and heaviness of the word surrender came back to me. What does she mean? I mean, surrendering is not a good thing. It literally means stop fighting. I give up. You've decided you will not win. And as I sat there in silence, memories of my grandmother flooded my mind. And this is a picture of her when she was 18. And she was this extraordinary woman. And there in the quietness, I realized how much I miss her every day. She worked really hard, and she loved really large. And she always, always gave of herself. Before I was born, my grandmother worked in fields picking cotton days on end. She cooked and cleaned for dozens of people every day. She washed clothes on a washboard and hung them on a clothesline to dry. And when the weight of that line, when the weight from the clothes made the line fall down, she picked them up and washed them again. I never remember my grandmother sitting down. She woke early and she went to bed late. And I realized I modeled my life after her. I would take advantage of all of the things she did not have access to as a black woman born in the 1920s. I would go to college. I would go to graduate school. I would have a professional career. I would meet a man that I adore and marry him. I would have a family, and I would take care of that family the way she had taken care of hers. But then it hit me. My grandmother always saved time for herself. She had this whole internal world that was all her own. I even remember walking in on her, reading the Bible, or listening to gospel music, or just sitting in silence, humming. And I realized that my grandmother had a very different definition of surrender. And like many black women of her generation, it was a counter definition. Instead of giving in, or giving up, she would give inward. It occurs to me that in our fear of not doing enough, we often are busying ourselves with lots and lots of work because there's so much to do. And in that work, that very good work, we oftentimes forget to honor what we're here, who we are. We are human beings and not human doers. And so today, I have learned to pay attention to me. I have learned to enjoy the things that make me happy and bring me joy at the same time that I work really hard. So now, I read books that make me laugh out loud. I pay attention to what I eat most of the time. I sleep throughout the night, and now I am recognizable to myself. Thank you.
Surrendering is hard. What is a place you love and why? My grandparents' farm in Toronto, Ontario. We would visit every time we would go on a camping trip. Amazing memories of family and learning how to be adventurous. I fell in love with snow there. A very specific place you love and why. 626 North Sheridan Avenue, 15206. I love this place because I have so many memories of my childhood and family there. It is the place I grew up, and I feel a deep connection to this place. What is a place you love and why? The Carnegie Free Library, Carnegie, PA. I love history, learning, and community spaces. A place you love and why? The next place I'm traveling to. Opportunity, experience, education, people, culture, love, art, and environment. What is a place you love and why? Grand Teton National Park. To me, in such harmony with nature, to be in such harmony with nature and be a part of it, to be in God's country. What is a place you love and why? Puerto Rico, for their environmentalist point of view, sustainability of water and land is a priority. I gotta find my clicker. With that, I'm gonna welcome to the stage Daniel Easton. He's an educator from Marshall County Schools in West Virginia. He's part, yeah, give it up. We had a couple West Virginia folks in places they love, yeah. He's part of our Green and Healthy Schools Academy. He actually takes the tenets of green building and the Living Building Challenge back into his classroom and is actually teaching kids about how to think about these things at a young age, embedding it into daily work. He is also a Knight of the Golden Horseshoe. Which I have no idea what that means, but it sounds incredibly awesome, and I understand that those of you who are from West Virginia know what that means. So with that, I welcome to the stage Mr. Knight, Dr. Knight. I don't know what that means. The Knight.
Thank you. Good evening. When Jenna asked me to speak this evening about the topic of the place you love, I thought this would be easy to discuss. However, given the current situation of education in West Virginia, I pondered on this question for quite a while. Why do I love and choose to stay in West Virginia? First, I'd like to start off by proposing a question to the audience. If you were asked to move to a location that ranked as one of the worst in the United States as far as poverty, obesity, tobacco, and opioid use, would you move to this location? I would assume, as with most young West Virginians, you would answer with a resounding no. Thus, how is it that I came to return to not only my community, but also the neighborhood of my childhood? My story revolves around three endeavors. First is my time as an infantry Marine. The second is my time teaching in China at one of their top 200 universities. And the third is my choice to return to West Virginia. After graduating from high school, I quickly realized that there wasn't many opportunities for me in West Virginia. So 1 month before 9/11, I chose to enlist in the United States Marine Corps. After a grueling training regimen, my unit was deployed to combat operations in Iraq. During this time, we were tasked with training the Iraqi security forces, their special forces, and securing the area that is now currently occupied by ISIS. During my deployment, my unit lost 46 Marines and 2 Navy corpsmen. Myself, I suffered injuries to my knees, my feet, 4 fractured vertebrae, and I suffer from the mental disorder known as post-traumatic stress disorder. Although these injuries took me a while to recover, they did bless me with certain lessons, such as the value and the power of working with a team towards a common purpose, the camaraderie I share with my Marines, and the value of life. This also motivated me to return and get my education. After graduating from West Liberty University, I once again realized that there wasn't much opportunity for me in West Virginia. However, I was offered the position to teach at one of China's top 200 universities. So alone, without any formal training in Mandarin, I decided to move halfway across the world, and I spent a year teaching over 800 students at Zhejiang Normal University's Honor College. During my time in China, I also gained some valuable lessons from the Chinese, that one should value your history, your culture, and your family. I also learned the idiom, falling leaves return to the roots. So after my year in China, I decided to return to West Virginia and reside near my parents. When I returned to West Virginia, I was able to take a job in Marshall County Schools, teaching at a program called Middle College High School. This was one of only 27 schools of its kind in the country. We focused on the last 3 years of high school and blended them with the first 2 years of college, focusing on small classes, counseling, interdisciplinary career training, and guidance. Also in Marshall County Schools, this enabled me to meet people like Mark Swagger. And with his leadership, we have been able to build a team in a county that ranks as one of the top for coal, oil, and natural gas production, to be one of the leading districts not only in sustainability in the state, but also in the country. One thing that I have learned in West Virginia, while we face many challenges, is that we also have many opportunities. Thank you.
I love the way Dan just told me thank you. Well, thank you, Dan. What is a place you love and why? The Rocky Mountains, because of their peace and beauty. I have to tell a minor story here. So my parents live in Nebraska. When my husband and I were dating, he came to Nebraska and we drove out to Colorado, and he'd never seen the Rocky Mountains. And he was driving when we started to sort of like go into the foothills, and we're driving on these like windy roads, and he's looking out the window and like veering off the road. I'm like, stop, you have to get out, and I have to drive. That's the end of my story. The Rocky Mountains are amazing. This is why I don't tell stories. Okay. What is the place you love and why? Gettysburg. I love the history of our country and love to walk the trails and look at and study the monuments. What is a place you love and why? France, because of the rich culture and wonderful food. However, sitting in front of my fireplace is a close second. What is a place you love and why? Finland. It is cold, dark, and the people are beautiful and weird. I think people just write these things, so I'll read them. What is a place you love and why? Lake Wenatchee, Washington. The smell of pine like crushed strawberries. The wind from the surrounding peaks feels like the beginning of creation. I can't read that word. The breath of creation. Oh, that's so much more poetic. The breath of creation. What is a place you love and why? Rose Wharf in Boston. Great public space and urbanism on a great waterfront. What is a place you love and why? Ascend Climbing Wall. I love this place because it is where I go to do what I love, climb. I go 4 times a week. It is my home away from home. Every person there is so genuine and their company enjoyable. It's a great environment to be in. And with that, I'd like to introduce our last speaker, who is a senior at Pittsburgh Creative and Performing Arts Academy. She wrote me her own bio, which is pretty amazing. Gigi is a pretty amazing person. As a senior in high school, this is not her first Inspire Speaker Series. Sustainability is something that she believes and works on every day. And the fact that she is not afraid of adults or afraid to travel the world and be on stage in front of 200 people should give you hope in humanity and sustainability and the future. And with that, I welcome Gigi.
My father was born and raised in Pittsburgh. My mom in Costa Rica. They met when my dad was in the Peace Corps. Because both my parents were sensitive to the enormous gaps between the haves and the have-nots in our world, I was raised to be fully aware of privilege and of the fact that our world is made up of multiple cultures, mindsets, and ways of living. Some of my best childhood memories were from spending countless summers and holidays in Costa Rica, spending time with my mom's family and assimilating into their lives for extended periods. From drinking café con mi abuela, to watching football con mis tíos, to exploring the amazing beaches and rainforests. Costa Rica was my second home. Summers not in Costa Rica, our family ritual was to undertake these epic road trips concocted by my dad, who is not only an avid rock climber, but really a master architect of adventure of all kinds. When we were young, he bought his dream vehicle, a 1986 Volkswagen Vanagon, whose roof pops up and you can sleep in the top of it. So with this, we would set off on these epic trips, living out of our van, exploring the country, going to all the cool towns we could find and cities, but always with the goal of finding the best climbing areas in the country. It was through these trips that I was able to visit some of the most amazing wilderness areas of our continent. From the Bruce Peninsula in Canada, to Acadia, Maine, to the White Mountains in New Hampshire, to upstate New York, the wild forests of Tennessee, North Carolina, West Virginia, the Red River Gorge in Kentucky, to the Badlands in South Dakota, the alpine forests of California. It was almost as if each place was more beautiful and precious than the last. So I think that it was this unique mixture of multicultural awareness and adventure that's at the core of who I am today. Through our trips, camping, hiking, climbing, and exploring the forests, mountains, and canyons of our country, I was able to see some amazing places, and my appreciation was able to develop into a full-fledged passion. I knew since a young age I wanted to do my best to preserve these resources, and so I was naturally led to environmental issues. So I think that as causes, both sustainability and social justice share a common obstacle in getting people to really commit energy to them. They are both so enormous. I mean, come on. Climate change feels so massive. And racism? Where do we start? It's no wonder that people want to turn off the news and instead binge watch Shameless or Stranger Things or spend their time taking BuzzFeed quizzes. And although I like doing those things sometimes also, and although I'm only 18 and only in high school, I know I want to make a difference. And I think I might know how. I think that the answer lies in this concept of community. I think that if we begin connecting like-minded individuals within communities of support to work together, we can get people to realize how their individual actions can make a difference. So my first personal example was, last year, 2 friends and I decided to reshape the environmental mindset of our school community. We formed Kappa's first Green Team, a club whose mission was to promote environmental education, encourage eco-friendly practices, and ultimately create a more sustainable school. So one of our first big projects was the construction and installation of a green machine, a recycling center in our school cafeterias. I remember how exciting it was, getting so many of my peers and seeing them involved and passionate about something I cared a lot about. Holding countless meetings, collaborating with nonprofits, working on campaigns, and discussing current events, I came to see how my individual actions did impact my school community. It's my hope that of the hundreds of students and staff who were aware of our work, maybe went out, talked to their friends and family, shared some of their evolving mindset, and perhaps in turn, those people did with their wider community. And so it goes, and so it grows. Through my work on Green Team, I was able to meet, learn, and speak with some of the amazing people doing this kind of work in the community. For example, like Jenna Kramer and the rest of the Green Building Alliance staff. Soon, an upward spiral of opportunity began to occur. I began being invited to lectures, workshops, programs. It was after this that I took part in a summer program at CMU around climate change and renewable resources. The summer after, I went to Yale, studied sustainability, energy, and the environment. Yale was really special because it was comprised of students from over 115 countries. Never in my life had I been surrounded by so many smart, informed, and ambitious peers. It was so exciting. I remember talking to these people from across the world, caring about the issues I cared about. It felt like we were learning how to change the world. Soon after, I got to take part in a fully funded 6-week summer immersion program in China, where I got to live with the host family and study at a local university, Mandarin, for 4 hours a day, with hopes that I could return one day and do US-China international environmental policy. I got to take place in another program, fully funded, working with Dartmouth professors, Chilean Antarctic researchers, and Chilean high school students, going to Patagonia and Antarctica to study polar science. I think that these examples are wonderful at showing the opportunities that are out there for people who are willing to not only look for them, but to go after them, and how many of them don't even cost a penny. So the takeaway that I want to leave all of you guys with tonight is that there really are ways that we can make a difference and make our voices heard. For my peers, I encourage you to seek out opportunities, find communities of support, fight for what you believe in. And for the adults in this audience, I encourage you to be relentless in your mentoring of young people and to to resist the temptation to succumb to apathy. And for everyone, please remember, there is a beautiful world out there. Let's do our best to not only protect it, but to make it better. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome all of our speakers back to the stage. Come up, Michelle, Will, environmental charter school students. Let's thank them all for being brave. Come on up. For sharing a little bit of themselves, for representing the future, and most of all, for sticking the landing. Thank you very much. One of my favorite places in February in Pittsburgh is the stage of GBA's Inspire Speaker Series storytelling session. There's a reason that we do this. Thank you very much.